So I came to Utah State about 6 years ago now, and I was a little intimidated already to be a professor. First, I come from outside the university, and I actually never got a traditional master's degree. This is a secret I hope you'll all keep for me. I got a non-traditional master's degree in the evenings while I was working at Children's Hospital Los Angeles. So most of the stuff you academics do is like total weirdness to me. And I came back to the university and I wanted to teach, except I ran into a stumbling block really quickly in that I was kind of a bad, great student. Have you ever had a bad, great student? I didn't like to go to class. I hated going to class. And by my senior year, I rarely went to class. Now, I got excellent grades, and all my professors just said, "Oh, Rebecca, you should go to class." And I said, "Oh, that's funny. As soon as I get a bad grade, I'll come to class." So when I stood up in front, I was like, okay, I don't want to be the professors that I didn't go to class for, but I only really kind of knew one style of teaching, because it's the style of teaching we all know, right? Where somebody like me stands up and gives you a nice, dry, boring lecture, and if you're lucky, we're really entertaining and you have a little bit of fun. But that's not really what education is about. So I started to study up on what makes something fun, because I knew that just telling jokes probably wasn't, although it makes my students happy when I tell lots of jokes, it probably wasn't the best way to teach. But when I tell people I'm studying how to have fun in the classroom, they kind of get this idea on me.
No room.
But I thought there was plenty of room.
Ah, but it's very rude to sit down without being invited.
I'll say it's rude. It's very, very rude indeed.
Very, very, very rude indeed. Oh, I'm very sorry. But I did enjoy your singing, and I wondered if you could tell me...
You enjoyed our singing?
Oh, what a delightful time. Is that thing, Cap? I'm so excited. We never get compliments. You must have a cup of tea.
Ah, yes, indeed, the tea. You must have a cup of tea.
That would be very nice. I'm sorry I interrupted your birthday party. Thank you.
Birthday? My dear child, this is not a birthday party.
Of course.
So I always like to start out when I talk about this at telling you that if you're looking like the Mad Tea Hatter's party, you're probably going the wrong direction. And in general, there's no reason to ask why a raven is like a writing desk. So let's really quickly look at what a fun classroom does look like, and then you guys are actually going to have to interact with me because you're making me nervous sitting there staring at me. So let's look at one of the activities that I did in my Honors 1350. Now this is freshmen, so I'm going to show you what freshmen were able to accomplish. Yes, they were honor students, they're still freshmen, so don't let that make you think they were like some odd group. But we will talk about what was accomplished in the course of this class. But here's an example of probably our most fun day.
And there's just like kind of like questions that seem kind of interesting to know like how to like little ideas like that.
Move, friends. I guess. All right, so tell me what you saw. They were exchanging computers. Did you notice that they actually were handing each other their computers as they talked? And somebody would then hand it off, and they were collaborating. Did they have just one collaborator? What were they doing while they were collaborating? What did we do every 3 minutes? They switched, okay? So this was based on speed dating, which always sounds a lot more fun than it is if you've ever been speed dating, but it actually worked better in a classroom than I think it ever did in my real life. So we were switching partners constantly. What were the students looking like? Engaged, okay, the holy grail of education, engagement, okay, were they engaged? In fact, what did I have a hard time getting them to do? to move and switch. I couldn't get them to stop talking to their partner. Okay? Would you like some activities that work like that? Yeah. Yeah, we were discussing, so this was part of their final exam, and I actually had I should have brought it. The general science textbook is called Science, oh boy. It's this boring overview of science book, and it just left my brain, I'm sorry. But they each had a piece of it, and what we were doing was putting together a large collaborative document that we used to quickly explain the entire textbook to one another. So at the end of this, we divided it all up, and we had one day where they each had to teach the section that they were then assigned. So they were putting together this document, all of us at the same time, all of us working together to make sure that we got an overview of all of the topics in the textbook. They had a 2-week period to read it. It's one of those new short paperback textbooks that have come into vogue. But it covered the history of science all the way through the scientific method. And I wanted them to learn it in 2 weeks. And so speed dating was one of the things they did. They each had to be an expert on a section, and then they were putting everything together in one collaborative document. Then we divided it up again, and they did a PowerPoint presentation to the class based on that section. Does that explain what we were doing? But what I found was that they could convey information to each other really fast in this method. They were super good at it. They really could focus in on what was important and then share it in that 3 minutes. And then by swapping, they had become experts on multiple topics throughout the time. And their retention was really amazing through doing that. So an engaged classroom is kind of the holy grail because it works with engagement. And then engagement leads to retention of knowledge. So a lot like our speaker this morning said, the more that we apply the knowledge at the same time that we are truly engaged with it and we're starting to flip it into the course of our lives, the more likely we are to hold on to that knowledge for a long time. And certainly speed dating was one of those things where I saw the students do that because they had to have eye contact, which I will tell you is the number one thing for fun. You will never have fun in an organization like you're in right now, where you are all staring at the back of people's heads and I'm the only person you can make eye contact with. This is not fun. You have to have eye contact. I only ever teach if I can, if the classroom will allow me in collaborative style, which means I turn people towards each other. Because that simple act of having eye contact with another human being changes the way you interact with the material. And it's not just all social shaming, which some of the research led towards. We do have a desire to prove to others that we have some knowledge and we're a worthwhile human being, but we also are more likely to ask for help when we've made eye contact with someone. So if I tell you to ask for help right now, immediately your brain's going to fill up with lots of reasons you can do it on your own, thank you very much. On the other hand, if you have already made eye contact with someone and I ask you to do a task that you're not comfortable doing, you are much more likely to lean over to that person next to you and say, so I really have no idea what she's talking about. Can you help me out? So we decrease risk by having eye contact. And if I were going to write something down in this course, that's probably the first thing I would write down. Decrease the risk your students have to take by increasing their eye contact with each other. Now, fun is so important that many Fortune 500 companies list it as one of their primary goals, to increase the fun in their work culture. So if it's important for someone like Disney to know that their employees are having fun, should it also be important for us to know that our students are enjoying their time? Unfortunately, there's a couple of things that we do as teachers that make fun less likely. We talked about one, the lack of eye contact. You all sit there, you stare at me. I get nervous because you're staring at me. Then I either go cold and stiff and just start talking to you about random things because I'm afraid to have fun because you're all staring at me. You haven't laughed at any of my jokes. Does that mean I'm not funny? Yes, it does mean I'm not funny, but it doesn't matter. You're just the wrong group to enjoy my jokes. So we're going to move forward with that. On the other hand, the other things that we do is we often want to script our fun for the students. I have a very fun activity. This is exactly how it's going to work. Our objective is to do this. Here's the 10 things we're going to accomplish. Oh my goodness, scripted fun is no fun at all. So being comfortable ourselves with taking risks, I think is something that makes it hard to have fun for professors. Even just telling a joke that falls flat can be scary for some of us. And it's like, oh, it was funny to me, but they're millennials and they're scary. And now they're zennials and we don't even know what that means. And please, someone help me. So our own risk tolerance gets in the way of what we're doing. The other thing is we try to be too fun. They really do enjoy that we're entertaining if we are, but students do come to actually learn something. So balancing all of those pieces. And the last one is adults don't like to be embarrassed. So some of the things we try to do to be fun, maybe we'll pull one person up. Well, unless you know who your class clown is immediately, and you know that person enjoys performing, you risk embarrassing them in front. And adults do not like to be embarrassed. They will do just about anything to avoid embarrassment. So we have to be really careful. And the last one is that too many rules make fun no fun. And this is an easy one to roll into because we kind of are risk managers in our minds as teachers. We start thinking of all the horrible things our students could do. They could bully, they could be bad, they could not learn, they could do this, they could do that, they could, oh my gosh, let's make more rules. But as soon as rules are the whole point. Now let's talk about what you do have to do. You do have to be willing to model having fun. And that means you have to be a little bit creative and you have to be willing to make mistakes. Now, I don't like games. I'm not an athlete. I'm not a competitor. So my idea of fun is never a game. That may not be true for you, but I find games to be high on embarrassment scale. I don't think real well on my feet. I like to be prepared and really low on the fun side. So trying to think of those things that make it fun. Well, the next kind of criticism that I run into for why fun doesn't work in a classroom in a college environment is generally we like some peace. Are there more than the average number of introverts among professors? Yeah, there are. Peacefulness tends to be something. So I think you have to understand your own tolerance for chaos. Now, for some odd reason, I am a person who tolerates high levels of chaos. This is probably because I was an artist turned scientist. So chaos and creativity are fun for me, and they fall under that. I have 5 children at the moment. I'm a foster mom. The cast in my house changes constantly. I'm like, look, these are the people we have. And it's crazy all the time. And kids don't have fun in silence. I don't think they're even capable of it. So my tolerance for chaos is pretty high. Another person's may not be. Don't feel like you have to be someone else in order to have fun. I guarantee if you are a functional human being, you are doing things to have fun. In fact, we're going to talk about it. We kind of went over this, but here's the example of speed dating. Speed dating, if I described it to you, probably would not sound like the amount of fun that we had with it. So what was important here was those levels of engagement, that they were communicating, they had lots of eye contact, they were capable of making jokes. And not all of us are big, funny people. In fact, one of the best speakers and educators I knew was my dad, and the man was not funny. I was raised by him, trust me. He didn't even do dad jokes well. He was not funny. I love my father, crazy, but he was a really good educator, and he depended on jokes from other people. He had these huge files and joke books, and they were all annotated with which subjects these jokes would work for. Because the man just couldn't think on his feet and do it. He really thought his family was crazy because we're all kind of silly. But so don't feel like you have to be entertaining. You just have to set up times where the students can entertain each other a little bit. You might have noticed in the speed dating that I was not even anywhere near all of that. I was sitting in the back videoing the entire time. So getting ourselves out of the performer role, letting the students entertain themselves a little bit, means number one, they're going to understand the humor, because let's face it, a lot of you are long past student time. So they're going to use age-appropriate humor, culture-appropriate humor, but they're also going to be able to bring that application aspect in, and the students are going to remember better what was said. All right, and I know we don't have a ton of time, but it's not possible to teach you how to have fun when I'm up here talking to you. In fact, it's the antithesis of fun. So I want you right now, for just a minute, to make a quick list of what you find fun. Now, I don't want you to think at the first about how could I incorporate this in a classroom, because that makes it not fun, okay? I just want you to write down what you're doing for fun. I don't care if that's hiking, if you have to jump off buildings to have fun, if you like going to bounce houses, it doesn't matter. I just want you to make a quick list of something that you find fun. Then we're going to move it into thinking about what you might use, but that's a second phase. So right now, while the music is playing, which my students called the worst music ever. I dealt with it. I liked it. You've got about 1 minute to just write down what you think is fun. Now it's too loud. Can't think. Okay, now make eye contact with the person sitting next to you. You're all organized in twos. Okay, real eye contact. Don't look at their nose or their shoulder. Like real eye contact. It's okay. They even have a name. You might want to find it out, maybe. Okay. All right. Now share with that person what you find fun and talk about what you think might work in a classroom. But first, just share. Tell them what you find fun. Great. Got a list. Can I speak? Yes. Oh, I definitely love these. We did a lot over the summer. Super fun. Yep. You got a list?
Well, I have a list, but I wasn't sure what you were asking, so I kept it like more like general. So I love learning. I love sharing. So like the mentoring. I love mentoring.
Awesome.
I like to do hands-on things, puzzles, stories. But like I love to garden. I love to read. I love family. I like
Fabulous.
to eat. Yeah.
All right. So find something you have in common and see if you can think of a way you might incorporate it into a class. It has to be something you find fun. Okay? What are we doing? How's it going? You got my mom.
Yeah.
She's awesome.
Yeah. I met you this summer in the online learning.
You did.
How's
Yep.
it going?
It's good. It is good. Trying to keep it real. That's all. Questions? What do you find fun?
I like playing card games.
Awesome. Cool. Any thoughts on how you could incorporate those?
Not right away. I think it would be context dependent on the subject.
My students used them to demonstrate how the flu. They played a card game that involved passing a deck of cards and used it to demonstrate how the flu passes throughout people. It was really clever and did an excellent job teaching because it showed how many people ended up with the flu based on if you had interacted with one particular card.
My chemistry professor, one of my chemistry professors, used cards really well to demonstrate like entropy.
Yeah.
Explain entropy.
So good. What do you find fun?
Very boring. I like just to hang out with people that I enjoy.
Okay, so what might help? What might be fun then if you were going to incorporate that in your class
So
or a class?
the kind of the way I did is I learned all my students' names when I was a TA, and I knew them and I liked them. I knew what they were involved in. I had a few kids in sports, and I actually knew them, and it helps.
Yes, it helps a lot.
Yeah.
One thing that we discovered, or that I've done also, because I really am a people person and I like it, is using small group management. So, and we had a share day where they could share their very favorite YouTube video. And it was really a fun, experience for us to collaborate and just kind of made that whole, let's hang out together and do things. So, all right, how are we doing? How you doing, back-sitters? I'm usually with you. How's life?
Good.
Good. You finding some things fun? I like that part too. Yeah. All right. Okay, about 20 seconds more. Ten, and then it's mine. Oh, I did not estimate. 3, 2, 1. Give me back the classroom. Or not. All right, guys. So, talk to me. 1 or 2 of you tell me something that you found fun and decided might incorporate into a classroom. You don't have to have a fully fleshed plan, just something that is niggling in the back of your mind saying, maybe this would be fun. Oh, nothing. I gave some people some ready-made ideas because, yes.
So we actually talked about the outdoors with our grandkids. But my idea for a classroom, I love to do lots of board games, and competition is always fun. It gets people excited. But like you said, sometimes one-on-one is a challenge. But I like to do group games, like a Jeopardy-style game, because it's a review, it's a quiz, you have candy. There's a lot of different ways to do some sort of little game competition as a review or to present your material outside of a PowerPoint or some other presentation.
Yeah.
Get their seats, gets them going.
Gets them moving.
Stand in the front, face-to-face, it's kind of like the feud, where they ask a question, one has to answer it. So I kind of incorporate Jeopardy feud or something like that in the classroom.
Which I think is fantastic. Another one of my successful ones was Shark Tank, where I took that entire idea of having a panel of judges and they had to present. Those are the projects you've been seeing them present. And then the sharks had some resources I was going to dole out. So the money I had allotted, and they had to give it to them, and they had to haggle with the sharks. So that kind of looking for what's fun outside of yourself. I love the Family Feud style where they're kind of against each other, but at the same time it's kind of fun and still group-based. I think that's a great idea. What else? Yeah.
So I once had a dean who said that he thought every single one of our classes in natural resources should have a field trip. And I looked at him and I said, well, I have 250 students. And he said, so? And so what I did, what I started doing was, okay, where can we have a field trip? Well, we can have a field trip on campus. All right, so what can we do that makes it more interesting? So one of the things that I did is I showed them where they could find food on campus from trees and plants, so that they could discover, and then maybe later they could take their friends there, or they could just know where the pistachios are, which I may or may not tell people. If they
Yeah, I'm like, wait, sidetrack, where are the pistachios? No, that's great. Yeah, go ahead.
One of the things I like to do is cook. My grandmother's one of the top 10 chefs in the United States.
Ooh.
So I grew up cooking, and so I incorporate food sometimes into my lessons. I teach A&P, anatomy and physiology, and so I tell my students, bring a stalk of celery with you to class. And then I say, bring a butter knife. And then we learn, maybe in medical terminology, I'll say we'll learn directional terms. So I give them a scenario. I say, Mr. Celery was laying on the counter, and he fell off, and he sustained this life-threatening injury. You're surgeons, and now you have to perform surgery on Mr. Celery. So they take their butter knife, and I say, make a straight line from the umbilicus inferior. And, I give all these directions, and they make all these incisions. And then I put them into teams, and this works for distance ed too. First team that's done, hit the buzzer, they do, and then I say, come up to the display and show us all your incisions. So let's go through the scenario again. They say, well, I made this line, and then they win a prize.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, I like that.
But I guess that's the idea of having competition. There's always going to be a loser.
Yeah, and I don't do a lot of loss-based, I admit, in mine. And even in competitions, here's an idea that I actually did have one competition, and I'm not saying I'm the greatest because I stole this from someone else. But halfway through, we mixed up the teams. So we were going along, and one team was getting their pride on and everything, and I randomly made a buzzer go off on my phone and said, okay, shuffle. Now you can't have the same person on your team. And we shuffled up the team, and we did that like 4 or 5 times. So in the end, the points were nonsensical because nobody knew who had really earned the points. But again, these are things you need to understand about yourself as a person. And then I always like to spend some time getting to know my students. So my dietetics students have such low risk tolerance. I don't really know and haven't figured out why, but their risk tolerance is 0. They do not want to take risks. So what I can do with them is very different from what I could do with my freshman honors students who had a high level of creativity still and really high tolerance for risk. So you do kind of want to know your class, and you want to know your own tolerance, because again, if you are not able to model the fun, it's going to stop being fun really quickly. One here and then in the back, yeah.
So just bridging on that comment with competition, like how do you balance that? I'm a person that's highly competitive, and so in my classroom I love to do games, but something that I found that's kind of become a middle ground with making it so it's not about winners and losers is incorporating chance. Because the minute you do that, then no matter how good a student is or no matter how much they know, they can still lose. And so for example, for reviews, I made these cards, and if they get the question right, they can pick a card. Some of the cards are terrible. Like they'll lose 100 points if they pick that card. And so they're negative. And then some of them are like plus 10. And so it's interesting because it becomes kind of like a gambling. Like, should we take it? Should we not take it? And what happens is it, like all competitiveness like is kind of toned down, but they're focusing on like the team camaraderie. Yeah. And when they lose points together, they're like, oh no, this is the worst. And so it brings them together and stuff. I think like that's a good way to balance competition, if you incorporate chance in the game, so that's not just skill or knowledge based.
Well, and game theory actually says that gambles and chance, people have fun whether they win or lose. So I think that is kind of an important one to bring in, is what element can you reintroduce that a person doesn't lose it for us. It's that up to bat, ball swings by issue that you really want to avoid. You also need to know anytime you're doing collaboration, who your people are with the potential to be unkind. And I always find ways to sit beside that person. You know, I just, oh, hi, hey, you don't mind if I sit by you again, Bill, do you? And then you can just be there in case it starts going the wrong direction. I do chance collaborations in the beginning, and then I start moving my groups very thoughtfully, if you have a small enough class to do it. So I am running out of time, but I do like to talk about encouraging creativity, reducing the cost of risk. One thing that will turn your classroom into a nightmare is to assign bonus points or any level of points to the outcome of your game. You will very quickly see the Hunger Games start. Okay, so being very careful. I was big, and after a while it became a joke in that I would promise them, like, oh, I have the biggest prize. You are going to die when you hear this prize. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm even doing this. And then it would be like a mini Snickers bar. And it was funny to them. Granted, you know, your personality sells it. But if you're going to give extra credit, just kind of give it away like Oprah. Extra credit for you and for everyone for being wonderful, okay? And if you're going to have it assigned to something, then have the construction of the game assigned to points. So it's something, again, you're controlling the cost of the risk. So if they came with the questions prepared or they came with an idea for a game, they get points for that, but the outcome stays out of your grade book. Okay, putting your outcome in your grade book will kill your fun. Okay. So here was our final exam, and we only have a few more minutes, and I want you to hear some of Jenna's amazing song. But students were assigned. So after we kind of did all of those things I was describing earlier, for their final exam, they arrived one Friday, and I told them which concept they had to prepare for the final. And they could do anything they wanted. Okay, now I know today said, don't tell them they can do anything they wanted. I did it, and it worked. So you can break rules all the time. And whenever they came to me to ask if this was a good idea, I said yes to anything. Now, creativity received points. If you want students to be creative, you have to reward them for it. Otherwise, it becomes too high a risk. And they will just try to figure out what you want them to do and do that. So if you want creativity, you have to provide some bonus for it. I got the most incredible things. So the deliverables that came into me, and you can click on the ones that I have access to, but I got children's books, I got musical compositions for it, people did Kahoot games. The lesson demonstration, she got all 5 of her cousins under 5 and taught them the basic principles of physics in a 10-minute lesson and recorded that and showed that she knew how to teach it. Incredible things that came back. A student did an entire photography exhibit. She had geography, and she went out and took pictures of all of the basic elements of geography that we had discussed, because this was a science course, so we were doing a survey of all the sciences. But then there was this one, which the students, we actually had a competition for whoever was the most creative. Again, I was rewarding creativity very highly. And this was the winner. She had the history of science. So she takes a while getting ready because, you know, she's on video.
Science history, let's start with Socrates, 4th century BC. Life without inquiry isn't worth living, so sue me for giving the peace of my mind. Plato came next, and all he was skeptical. He liked to play with abstracts. Aristotle, the popular natural philosopher, studied the things he could see. And it follows, if all that we saw was Aristotle, then that's what our science would be. Ethics, metaphysics, and natural history. The earth is the center of everything ever, and that's how God meant it to be.
All right, so she actually has 3 verses of that. So these are the kinds of things that landed in my inbox. And the day we spent looking at them was another really fun day, seeing what everybody had come up with. So we're not going to have time for the second activity, but I want you to really think about that idea that you had for fun. And what could you do? In fact, as you're walking around, maybe you will bring that up. How could you take something you have fun doing and share that with your students, whether it's walking around, finding hidden pistachios, playing card games, using board game ideas, or if you're like me and watch a little too much reality TV, how are you bringing The Bachelor to life? Okay. One last thing, though, fun is a means, not an end. You want to know what your learning objective is. This was actually where we headed in my course, even though I used a lot of fun, because I wanted them to do something big and risky and scary. I wanted them to do a science project outside of the classroom, something that had real-world implication, and they had to interact personally with 100 people. That's the kind of thing that generally makes students' knees quake. So I used fun as a way to increase their risk tolerance, decrease their fear of creativity, and of losses related to creativity. And because of that, with guidance, interaction, modeling of my own fears, letting myself fail sometimes in front of them, they created some really wonderful real-world projects. And these projects, again, exceeded everything that I was imagining that they would do. This particular one went to legislators. They went down to Utah or down to Salt Lake and talked to legislators, 100 different of them, to find out what they thought about GMOs and what their understanding of it was. And so when you start using fun and creativity to enhance your teaching, you get to sit back and be amazed by what your students can do, because chances are they're more creative and a little bit more interesting than even you are. So we have to, as educators, think about whether or not we are creating a momentary experience in a classroom, or are we trying to create a lifelong learning curve? And that involves being creative, being good problem solvers, and being great collaborators. And the more we bring those things in, the more we're going to have fun with our students, and the more we get to sit back and enjoy this. So thank you so much for being here. I'm going to show you the PSA that they created as part of the class. This was beyond our course curriculum. Theirs was on, their science project was on awareness of the snack facility here on campus, which is emergency food. They found out the students didn't know where it was. That was why they weren't accessing it. So even though they got 0 points for it, they showed up at the symposium with this video, and you will probably see it on TVs around campus. Thanks so much for being here. I'm just going to let this play while you file out. You guys were great.